look at the regular agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved that we adopt.
Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And the consent agenda. So moved. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Moving to the regular agenda, item number 5, consideration of the following budget amendments. I'd like to recognize Mrs. Williams, please.
Mayor, Council, I'm here tonight to discuss the following budget amendments. And I can give you a quick overview of all 6 budget amendments, and at the end, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you would wish to go back to review this particular amendment. Our first amendment is in regards to stormwater mapping. We had $75,000 of stormwater mapping expenditures this year, and the entire amount was budgeted in the Power Bill Fund. However, 30% of the $75,000 or $22,500 must be prorated and paid from the Water and Sewer Fund, and the remaining $70,000 can be paid from the Power Bill Fund. The good news is that the city received a $50,000 grant, and the revenue must also be prorated on the 70-30 formula. Therefore, the Water and Sewer Fund received $15,000, and the Power Bill received $35,000 to total the $50,000 grant. The overall net expenditures to the Water and Sewer Fund was only $7,500. Budget amendment number 2. The city has a contract with Power Secure for the generator at our Super Walmart. Any savings that reduce our power purchases are passed to Power Secure. The city is to pay for any fuel for the generators that are out due to power outages. Since this is our first year, we've estimated approximately $4,000 for fuel cost. The remaining $84,000 is an estimate from Electricity as they work this up for the city for the power savings, and that entire $88,000 will be passed or paid to Power Secure. The net effect for the city should only be the fuel cost, the estimates of $4,000. And we don't know if that's too low or too high until we actually get, a year's worth started to know. Okay. The third budget amendment. The city had storm damage of $58,800, which was the lowest of 3 bids on 3 buildings located at our public service center. Our insurance adjuster has approved $55,352 to replace these roofs. The difference between the lowest quote and our insurance is $3,448. And the reason for this difference is that the quote is for 25-year shingles versus our current shingles of 20 years. The contractors could not locate a 20-year shingle of the same color. And also we have statements from the contractor stating that a 20-year shingle is inferior in comparison to wind ratings and the durability of a 25-year shingle. So I called our insurance agent back when we found this out, and he stated that once the roofs were replaced, that we could possibly receive the $34.48 additional difference with the above explanation that I just explained. So the city also, keep in mind, we have a $5,000 deductible on all property claims. So hopefully this will be our only out-of-pocket expense, the $5,000 for our deductible. However, worst case scenario, it would be the deductible plus this $34.48 for a total of $8,448 for those 3 buildings. Okay. Budget amendment 4. This is as you guys are all aware because you've approved it, we had our payment to Williams Design for the police department. The funds were paid out of those ABC store reserves. So after this payment to Williams Design, there will be approximately $891,000 left for the ABC proceeds.
How much will be left?
$891,000 approximately. Budget amendment 5. We had budgeted a total of $13,000 for the election expense. The invoice came in this week, I believe it was done, or was it this week, for a total of $21,325. So that's the reason for the additional $8,325 we need to pay this invoice. And finally, the last budget amendment, this is for our school resource officer. This was approved at the October 6, 2011 council meeting. This is our estimate that we will be sending into the school system. They will refund the city 10 of the 12 months. So the 10 months is approximately $50,160. So the city's out-of-pocket cost for our officer for those other 2 months is approximately $10,000. And I'm open for any questions.
I appreciate you appreciate you going over these. I know we have just talked about some of these recently, but when I totaled these up, I felt like the total amount was worthy of discussing again, so I appreciate you reviewing these.
Thank you.
Anybody on the council have any questions?
You just said, let me make sure I heard you right. You said the 50,160 is the 10-month figure?
That's
not
correct.
the total figure?
No, the total figure for the officer is going to be approximately $60,000. So the out-of-cost expense for the city will be 10. And the reason you don't see $60,000 coming from the appropriation for fund balance is because Chief Jordan's had some vacancies throughout the year that would more than compensate the $10,000 that we're going to have to pay for our difference between the $50,000 and the $60,000. The $50,000 is truly what we'll get back from the school system.
And I had this Walmart generator just reminded me, I would like to get some kind of proof of a PMI, something that generator is up and working so that Walmart doesn't experience what happened last summer. If you could get me something like that, I would appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Greenberg.
Mayor, I want to go back to this resource officer a second.
Okay.
What I just heard you say, I think, unless I've heard something different, is the cost that we will get reimbursed is the $50,000.
That is correct.
And that is in the same breath as the cost, roughly, of what this officer is going to cost us. For the first year, because of people who have left, and that, so the first year, our expense will be about $50-some thousand, and the reimbursement will be about the same amount of money.
I'm sorry if I didn't make it clear. Our cost will be approximately $60,000.
Gotcha.
$10,000 is from the city's pocket,
Okay.
our readers, and then $50,000 will be from the school system.
Okay.
The only reason I didn't increase the appropriation from fund balance is because there's enough money in Chief Jordan's budget due to vacancies to cover that $10,000 our out-of-pocket expense.
So the point there is, for the first year, the budget changes actually will be relatively zero for this office.
Yes, sir, that is correct because of the
So
vacancies.
essentially, the first year is not going to cost us anything additional than what we had already had budgeted.
Other than what Chief Jordan had explained, like the other little expenditures like uniforms and different things that was approved and discussed at the October meeting.
And that was something I spoke with Mr. Emery about. I'm just curious, since we're doing this as a partnership with the county, and they're reimbursing us that 83%, I think is what 10 out of 12 months is. For those costs, I wonder if we could go to the county and say, hey, it's not only costing us this, it's also costing us other amount of stuff for guns, badge, uniforms, that sort of thing. If they would look at helping us in that, since it's 83% theirs to start with.
And we also, Mr. Steve Sickafus, when we met with him, Chief Jordan and myself, he gave me the spreadsheet, and I spoke to Leon, how the county, they have like 4 or 5 officers that they do the same format that we have here to send in. And to my knowledge, they don't ask for that, but that's an excellent point.
We could ask.
Can't do nothing, tell us nothing.
That's right.
Yes, that is correct.
That's right. Let's remember.
Oh, is there any more questions?
I just wanted one clarification. The stormwater mapping,
Yes, sir.
that is not an increase in budget, that is moving money around in the existing budget. But now, from I understand, that is the end, this is the end of the mapping process. I mean, this year, we're not looking at doing this next year, this is kind of the end of this.
Now, what we discussed at retreat, the mapping is complete, and the next phase would be to develop a plan. And while we're talking about that, we have still not yet been notified officially that we're going to be a phase 2 participant, but we still feel confident that's going to happen. And based on review the census numbers, but you're right, the actual mapping field work is complete.
Anything else? Thank you very much, Mrs. Williams. Okay, item number 6, concern the contract request for approval of Lovable LIncolnton Wine Fest event, Saturday, March 24th, sponsored by Downtown Development Association. I'd like to recognize Mrs. Davis.
Mayor,
Yes.
we need to sort of vote on these budgets then?
Yes.
We did.
We did not.
Kathy, can you, while they get me straightened out up here, if you hold on one second, please. Thank you very much, I appreciate that. Okay, these budget amendments, let's Is there a motion?
So moved.
Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Ms. Davis.
Good evening, and I think most of you have the information that was presented to you by Brad Booth's office, and just wanted to share with you that I have a lot of experience with wine festivals in the past, as do several members on our promotions board. Our committee chair is here with me this evening, Libby Yarber, who works with the North Carolina Cooperative Extension and also serves in a dual role of working with some of the wineries in the area. This would be an extenuation of the art crawl, which is on the night prior to, and will also feature artists and vendors at the same time. The Bud Break Wine Festival, which is held in Mount Airy, is something that we think that we would be similar to. They host about 16 wineries currently. They started in 2010. It was carried out by the Rotary Club of Mount Airy. And they also involved entertainment, art, and food vendors. And in their inaugural year, approximately 2,000 visitors visited the town for that particular event, which is limited hours during the daytime and controlled by all of the requirements with alcohol consumption. There are vendor fees that are involved, there are winery fees that are involved, and there are entry fees that are involved. So we think that it would be beneficial to the promotions team, and proceeds would be beneficial. And I'm asking any questions that you all might have about the event.
Any questions? Mrs. Davis.
Did you say that the one you were referring to, that it brought in about 22,000 people the first?
No, 2,000.
2,000?
2,000.
Whoa.
Ms. Davis, in the planning for this, what type of conversation has your group or the DDA had with downtown businesses about the possibility of another event taking place?
Of another event?
Yes.
Well, on the promotions team, there are downtown businesses that are represented on that. Katie Wood Incorporated, and a few others. Brad, if you could share some of the businesses that are
Yeah,
on
we
there.
haven't done a downtown-wide survey to ask for information about the events, but as Kathy said, there are a number of most work group members that are business owners, and property owners in downtown.
I just know the biggest concern I always hear with these things is from the business owners who complain that downtown is shut down, and if they have a hair salon or a business that maybe doesn't cater to the specific event, then they actually lose 2 or 3 days of business because of it. So I didn't know if y'all reached out to those folks or not.
No, that is something that we can do. They participate in the art crawl primarily. We have very few businesses who choose not to participate in the art crawl, and this is just an extenuation of that. So we'll have that conversation with them at the same time. We're soliciting their ongoing support for the art crawl.
The art crawl has been a huge success from my
Yes.
perspective. It's really gone over well in the community.
It has. Very well received.
As I was reviewing the packet, I did circle a different area. Have you ever kicked, and I'm not even saying this is a good idea, but I'm just
Okay.
wondering, have you kicked around moving it maybe around the court square, or maybe using the court square or another street versus, to Devin's point, some of the downtown development some of the downtown businesses that, that it does slow their business down. Has that been a thought process?
We talked about several options, and around the court square would be, I think that we would even enjoy that. We were just afraid that we might take away some of that patronage from some of the businesses that might choose to be open. Because, your crowd is going to, tend to flow into some of those businesses that are where the action is. So I felt like, or our group felt like that it would be more beneficial to stay in those areas where those businesses are.
Good point. Any other questions or concerns?
I do have one more, and I do think on the surface this is a good idea. I did notice as part of the agreement that it would also be saying it was okay for, I think, the beer sales and the traditional beer gardens. That's not the case.
No, I think that when that contract was put together, it was the same one that we used for the beer garden, but we will not have malt beverages for sale at that event.
Okay, so that is not in here, because I
No,
thought I read it.
I can tell you that wineries and microbreweries don't get along well. So, and it's just not the same caliber of event, so no, malt beverages will not be.
So
Just-
I
just-
don't,
It'll be wine.
Just
Just
one
wine.
clarification of that, you are, in the contract, you are giving permission for beer and wine, but the event is actually only gonna have wine at it, and that was from the contract, that's, the contract that we have is the same contract, the verbiage in the contract is the same as it was for the Hog Happening and the Alive After Fives, and like the Alive After Fives, we don't have wine at the Alive After Fives, but it's still in the contract that allows us to do that. Does that make sense?
It does, so is that, would that be sold in a fashion like that, the wine that would be sold and or consumed will be done by the vendors selling, not the city of Lincolnton selling?
Correct.
Okay.
We'll be selling a glass to them, Mr. Ryan, for as their entry, and they'll get samples at the different wineries in that glass.
Can you buy two?
Any other questions or comments? All right, what's the pleasure of the council?
I make a motion that we approve the contract for the Global LinkedIn Wine Fest event on Saturday, March 24th.
Any other discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Are there any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now, you're going to get to stay with us here. Item number 7, a request from the DDA to ask LinkedIn Tourism Development Authority to sponsor a band for a 2012 Hog Happening event of $10,000. Mrs. Davis.
Yes, and this is something that the city has been gracious enough to fund for a few years now, and we are again making that request in the amount of $10,000 in hopes that we can secure a legacy band, something along the lines of a Marshall Tucker or something that is a bigger name band than we've had, so that we can attract more folks and spend more money here in Lincolnton.
Okay.
Mayor, just as a point of clarification, I think the first year the board approved 10,000, but they didn't use that much. And then last year, I think you used a little over 5,000 as well. But as I understand this, this would just give you the ability to go up to 10,000.
Up to 10,000 to hire a band that we see as a greater quality.
Okay.
Yeah. That doesn't mean necessarily, as Mr. Emery just pointed out, that we will spend the 10,000.
How much did we budget for that last year? Because I remember there was an anniversary edition of the Hog Happening at some point where we
That's the
put
year we
more
budgeted.
money out there,
Yeah.
and I
We-
think that was still when Ace and TJ's band came, so
They've been
it's
2
twice
years
the
in a
last
row.
2 years.
The first year we budgeted 10, and Brad, tell me if I'm wrong, but we still got the band charity case.
Charity case.
And they were like less than 6. And then last year, I think we only budgeted 5,000 or something, because you knew you were gonna get them
The
again.
same band, correct. We had charity case 2 years.
So it sounds like you're saying this year you may go for a different band.
Yes.
This is normally done during our planning, is that correct? Don't we normally have this conversation during our planning? The only other difference, I guess, would be where you're requesting that it come from, and Mr. Emery, you're gonna need to clarify this probably, but Lincoln Tourism Development Authority, is that the?
Technically, Mayor, this request is really, the Lincoln Tourism Development Authority has the authority to make this decision. I think we've always, as a courtesy, wanted to get the council's blessings. And I think one reason that they maybe asked for it earlier this year, in the past, when it was approved like